everyone, and welcome to the AI Talk Show. I'm Asha Saxena, and today we are diving into the most exciting and complex conversation in the future of work. We all have been talking about it, all have been discussing, but agentic AI is here. For years, AI has helped automate tasks and analyze data, but we are now entering a new phase, one where AI systems are becoming agentic, capable of reasoning, they're becoming agentic, they're becoming more capable of reasoning, acting autonomously, and collaborating alongside humans. I've been thinking about this topic a lot because was writing my third book, The Digital Human Advantage, and I got a chance to talk to several of the industry leaders and academia to really understand what the value of these digital humans would be in the coming future. What does it really mean, and how it's going to change our work relationship with people and also with digital humans or digital twins. What it really means is that the work is changing. Teams are not no longer going to be made up of just people. They're now going to include intelligent system that think, act, and even make recommendation in real time. So the real question isn't how AI is going to impact our jobs, which we all talk about. Listen, every time I'm at a conference and I'm speaking, that question comes no matter what. But it's really depending now on how we redesign roles, how we're going to redefine leadership, readiness, and how we're going to reimagine collaboration in the world where humans and AI share the workplace. They are truly going to become our co-workers. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. I'm so excited and I'm so thrilled that we are going to be joined by someone who has been at the forefront of innovation in product design and digital transformation, Raffaelle Breaks, Chief Product and Design Officer at WNS. Raf, welcome to the talk show. And I get to meet many industry leaders when I'm having this conversation, but I'm really excited to have this conversation specifically with you because you've been dealing with the product and designs for a while. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks, and thanks for having me.
Before we jump in, why don't you give us a little background about your career or professional journey, and then we'll jump into this topic of agentic AI.
Yeah. So let's go backwards, right, in my career. So I'm currently the Chief Product and Design Officer at WNS. I started just over 6 months ago, so still relatively new to the space, but leading product, design, and product engineering here at WNS, which is a BPM firm that is, innovating within services. And my responsibility is to help WNS transform its offerings and its core business, which I happen to have quite a lot of experience, having worked, 20 plus years at American Express, starting my career as, in product before it was called product, I like to joke, working with software engineers to re-platform software as one of my first roles, but really leading product and design at scale over a 20-year career, which included reimagining a lot of the back-end, front-end processes of a big financial services company and translating them into digital self-servicing. And then in between WNS and American Express, I spent 3 years at a health tech startup, did something totally different, really came out of my comfort zone, learned a lot about the US healthcare system, and led the product engineering and design teams at a company called Unitas that was really at the forefront of building software and analytics to help community-based organizations receive the funding they really deserve, but also help individuals get access to social services. So a fantastic role and 3 years well spent on more of a mission-driven outcome.
And I think that's why, Raf, I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic because you've spent time in looking at processes and looking at how to build a product and how to scale the product, design the product that consumer can actually consume that. And when you think about agentic AI, we are now working with this digital humans or the agents who can act like our coworkers. So we're really entering this era of agentic AI. We are not just automating the process anymore. We are
No, we're
redefining
not.
agency itself,
Yes.
And I feel like for the first time, intelligence systems can interpret context, or they can be actually autonomous. They can be autonomous decision makers or collaborate across workforce. Maybe we're not there yet and we are still in the pilot stages, but I do think that a lot of the organizations are thinking about it for sure. They are thinking about how to incorporate these agents into our workforce. So, from your perspective as a product and design leader, how does this shift challenge the very idea of what a role is inside an organization? Are we beginning to see a new kind of organizational intelligence emerge, or maybe it's the blend of human intuition with machine reasoning to form these hybrid teams we've been talking about, who are
Yeah.
capable of learning, adapting, and co-creating value in real time? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I'm quite a practical person. So, what we've been doing is really sort of looking at the evolution of those roles, right? And starting with what I know really well, which is the role of a product manager, right? And then looking at the role of a designer, the role of an engineer, data scientist, even an AI architect. All of those roles are going to continue to evolve, and they're going to, some of these roles have newly emerged over the last few years in
True.
terms of AI architecture. But I think starting with product management, right, which has sometimes been undervalued, quite frankly, like
Right.
the amount of times, I've explained, what does a product manager do? What does a product director do? And actually, the ability to define objectives, goals, understand customer needs, i.e., the context, right? And not just jump to a solution, right? So much of what's happening in the moment is like, we've got a solution and then we're trying to force fit it, right? How do I use Gen AI? How do I use agentic AI systems? Where can I put an agent instead of a human? But what
Right.
I think the role of a product manager is it's more important than ever with AI, because they need to set those goals. They've got to understand the objectives. And if they're working day to day with their own agents, right, that is a skill set that a lot of people will need, because they're going to be
Right.
managing potentially one, two, a team of agents. And you're going to have to set the boundaries. You're going to have to lead them in ways that no one's thought about before in terms of this workforce, this virtual workforce. So I think product management skills will actually become more inherent in your day to day. Like, if you think, I'll speak a bit more about like hiring, and there's a lot of news about how graduates aren't getting roles, and we're going to have to actually change what they learn at college. But
Right.
I think if we go back to the role of product manager, designers, I think for product managers in particular, they're going to have to become more strategic, right? They're going to have to sort of elevate their thinking. They're going to have a better understanding of the external landscape, because everything's evolving so quickly. It isn't
Yeah.
just like they're going to be, their performance and their reviews are going to be based on what they know and how they can adapt and evolve. And, at least in our personal habits and how we're using AI in our own day-to-day lives is happening so quickly that, they're going to see that adaptation and that adoption, not just in our personal lives, but in the professional world as well.
True.
So I think product managers will need to become better at strategy, discovery, that upfront definition. I think designers, will really have to hone their skills, because taste and understanding what good user experience looks like when you're prompting, when you're chatting, when you're right, that's a different type of user experience than web applications. And so they're going to have to hone their craft and have a point of view more than ever on what best in class user experience looks like. And they're going to have to do a bit more sort of strategic thinking. And then I think, as part of the way that we architect our teams in squads, when they're working with their data scientists, their engineers, right, those folks are going to have to lean into collaboration and understanding the needs of the user and customer even more,
Right.
because they'll be reviewing and signing off on code rather than doing the development, the first iteration of the development themselves with the way that we're, the way the industry is going. And they
That's
need to
true.
understand the architecture and have a point of view and building far more reusability than ever before, because everything's moving so fast. You want to build things once and have it scale to many users or for many domains, of which the world I'm in at the moment. So that architecture is going to become really important because you want to build products that scale.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on some really important points. It's like, how do we as human upgrade? How do we become better at what we do? Because now we have the superpower and we can use this superpower, but we cannot deploy and scale if we don't use it effectively. And
That's right.
I talk to a lot of professionals and they talk about, do we need new skills because we're going to be managing not just people, but these agents. And I always say it's like going back to basics, really thinking about how you worked with people. You had to make sure there were clear direction. You
That's
made
right.
sure that you understood the consumer requirement and made sure that it was easy to use. So you have to go back to the basic principles to deploy these agents effectively. you know
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
when I think about this agentic AI, and they are going to reshape roles. And when you think about, let's that we know that we are on the path where these agents are just going to become more, better and give better output. It's going to quietly rewrite how power and decision making will flow within the organizations. How these AI systems begin to act as collaborator, or if they're analyzing data or proposing actions or even negotiating some trade-offs, they're going to start influencing the outcome in ways that, and it sounds like science fiction, but really, if you think about it, uh, it was humans who were the domain expert. Now you're going to have these agents who are going to be domain experts. So how do leaders and designers rethink workflows or authority or accountability in this new environment? First of all, does this bother you? Um, and what does it look like to design teams where humans and AI systems truly can elevate each other, where autonomy is distributed? Because you have to also think about purpose and ethics that remain firmly human led still.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I like to think of myself as an AI optimist on most days, unless, I read one of those doomer articles, but on most days, definitely optimistic. And I think the team structures will evolve, right? I mean, there's a lot out there about flattening of organizations, taking layers out. And I think companies are doing that all the time. They're reorganizing. The very good companies that are transforming themselves and staying up to date. I think they do that all the time. I think the difference is going to be, we're going to ask people to become leaders a lot sooner than we have in the past, because they're going to be leading a team of agents.
Right.
And so, as I said, right, if you're newly graduated or you're entering the workforce for the first time, we're now going to have to train you on some very critical leadership skills around setting goals, being really clear and crisp in your communication / prompting, understanding how to give the context. These are all things that leaders learn as part of their experience and career. And we're going to have to find ways to infuse that, even how people, when they're at college, so that when they enter the workforce, they do have some of those skills. And it's really hard, right? Sometimes it's really hard to give the right context and to set
Right.
those objectives and then to measure them and refine them. And it's going to be this repeatable sort of set of leadership skills around setting, measuring, refining. And the good news is, I think once you do learn those and it becomes inherent in what you do day to day, I do think there's going to be changes in, how humans and AI complement each other.
Right.
So if you were to ask a human, right, what do you enjoy doing, right? And what are the things you don't enjoy doing at work? And I suspect, and I've tried this out with many of my team over the last few years, when it's turned, when I'm either having a career conversation with them, but now I'm having it because it's like, right, what can we automate?
Yeah.
And so 9 times out of 10, they'll probably tell you that the tasks that they don't like doing are probably the ones that have a content heavy, require a lot of repeatability, maybe aren't the most like strategic today, but actually those are perfect for having an agent support you with, or using the latest tools that have become available. And so I think that's how they'll complement each other, in terms of hopefully giving humans the ability to really rise and lift a lot of their strategic thinking, a lot of their leadership skills, and initially, right, having a lot of those repeatable, content-heavy tasks, or now workflow tasks with clear objectives, outcomes that you can train an agent on and monitor. And so humans will be required to do that, as you said, because of the
Yeah.
AI responsibility, the ethics, making sure that it's actually following the business rules or regulations, and also making sure it doesn't adapt in ways that it's hard to, in a product world, it's hard to think of every single nuanced use case. And what we're seeing with AI is like very nuanced use cases coming out, and having to adapt and pivot the product to actually take those into account. So it's really interesting. We're asking a lot of the teams that we work with day to day to be a lot more iterative as well. So people that can deal with complexity, can deal with nuance, and are adaptable, are really going to succeed in this new world.
I have to tell you that I think change is hard.
Yeah.
You remember accountants doing ledgers on paper, and then it became Excel, and
Yeah.
now people are so used to Excel and they can't move to the new technology. So I think the change or shift is harder for people, even though it brings you efficiency and accuracy. Change is always hard.
It is.
But if you really see it, I love what you said. It's like, if you really see what are the mundane stuff you don't want to do, you can use AI to automate the manual stuff, which we're basically wasting our time doing this admin stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, just simple example of emails. Oh my God. I mean, so great to have AI that can automate your email and put the reminder on top, just basic calendar management, or content creation, so I think there is a balance where the professional needs to understand how do we take the mundane stuff and really focus on being more productive and use our skills and strategy and understand which problem we want to solve. We are in that age of lifelong learners who are now evolving and being curious about what questions do we want to ask. I think it's
Yeah.
it's not so much about the answers, right? They say asking good question, and that's whole prompt engineering talks about what question are you asking to get the right result. And that's
Yes.
where we are as we think about building these agents and how these agents will perform. But as I think about, I mean, we are spending a lot of time in getting humans ready, to adopt and change and scale. But most companies are talking about the AI readiness and also in terms of data infrastructure or technical capability. But the true readiness is cognitive. I think it's about how people perceive, trust, and integrate these intelligent systems into their own decision making loop, like what you just spoke about.
Yeah.
But for a product and design standpoint, how can organization intentionally design for that kind of readiness? What framework or design principles you think can help build cognitive trust, so employees don't just use AI tools but learn to collaborate with them as thinking partners capable of sharing reasoning and judgment together?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because, as I came into this new role, right, with every sort of role I take on, or if it gets expanded or I'm given different responsibilities, I always like to take some time to think about, right, how can I evolve? How can I get better? Well, what does performance in this new world look like? And so when I started in this role, I was like, right, what product development life cycle are we going to be using? Right, I was bringing a few teams together from across different parts of the organization. This is very common to, it's a pattern in my career about bringing teams together and having them work in a more streamlined manner and working together and the collaboration. And that has always been part of the role I play, is bringing those teams together and thinking through and helping them with the change when it comes to the product development lifecycle in which they should all be working. And what I think is really interesting is, because the evolution and the speed of change, what I'm asking my teams to do now is really focus on an upfront discovery phase and then a delivery phase. Right. Really just like two continuous sort of circles that are very complementary. They still have the different phases of, in delivery, you're still testing, you're still releasing product. In the discovery phase, you're doing more of the upfront, definition, competitive research, internal, external. But the way that we form the teams has, really put more of an emphasis as well on data scientists and AI architects as part of that squad. So it's no longer just a triumvirate of engineering, product, and design. It's also, having that squad include a data scientist or an AI architect, depending on whether you're doing upfront discovery or delivery, as well as your ML engineers as part of the delivery phase. And so I do think, it's really important to have a framework by which you work when you're developing products. And then similar to digital transformation, if you're rolling out AI for a specific workflow or task, you really have to understand the data, the technology, the systems that you're infusing AI into. And that's why that discovery phase is so important, because you need to understand what you're getting into. And you also need to understand the process, right? If you're thinking about implementing an agent into a process, there's a level of modernization that's needed, because it's modernization sometimes of the business process or the rules that have been added to a specific workflow that's going to be exposed to an internal user or an external customer if you don't think about it up front and think about how you're going to use an agent when the business process itself maybe doesn't make sense as it stands today. And so that understanding of the process and the policy and the business rules, an agent will try and find the best solution possible for the customer. And if the business rule isn't geared towards the user or the customer, it's going to drive dissatisfaction. And it's going to drive dissatisfaction with the bot or the agent, rather than the actual business rule that then creates the friction. And we saw this with digital. When we used to digitize a lot of workflows, we're like, oh no, now we're going to expose the fact that, a customer is going to learn about, this additional charge, which before they wouldn't have been exposed to. And an agent is always going to try and optimize. And so you've got to rewrite some of those business rules as well. And that's why understanding the process, having SMEs involved, and having those as principles, that it's okay to look at these processes and redesign them as you're modernizing them and infusing AI.
I as I'm hearing you talk, I can't stop thinking about the culture, the purpose, the mission as we think about AI. I run the organization World Leaders in Data and AI, and our mission is to build a responsible world, a fair digital world. And in this age where that AI could be biased, if the data is not right, you're going to get those outputs that doesn't work. And it kind of worries me is that as the builder of this technology, are we taking responsibility of making sure that we're doing the right thing? So, when you think about cultivating a culture that keeps human imagination and purpose at the center of progress, what does it take to build an organization where AI expands our creativity, ethical capacity, rather than the worry that people have of eroding the very humanity that give our work meaning, and I think
Yeah.
it goes back to consciously thinking about the ethics, the value, and doing the right thing as you work with this powerful technology.
Yeah, I think culture is so important, right? I truly believe culture leads to higher performance and great results. If you don't have that culture, you're just fighting an uphill battle all the time to drive results and performance with your team. And what I've found over, like 20 plus years experience is that you've got to embrace new ways of working. And especially in this time of change, it's going to be paramount. And obviously, we talked a bit about earlier about change is hard. I used to say that all the time until my team got a bit bored of me actually saying it. But it really is hard. But what I'm doing at the moment is identifying some quick wins, right? What does AI enablement, what can we do internally to empower and train our teams? Because the more opportunities I can give them, the better the culture. If they feel like they're innovating, they're going to feel better about coming and doing their work every day because they're learning something new. And humans do love to learn. And so, just as an example, we've adopted Figma Make within the design team, a low code, no code tool for prototyping. And initially, we just thought it was going to be an efficiency game. We're like, yay, we're going to be able to do more prototypes because our designers are going to really use this, no-code tool to just keep creating prototypes. But what we found in the what we found quite early on is it actually resulted in defining and creating better products because it enabled, just like other Figma tools, and look, I'm not an investor in Figma, but I wish I had been because it's been just so widely adopted by the design community and I love what they're doing. But in terms of what my team was able to do, they were able to create a really good working prototype of the next generation of one of our products. And they would do that because Figma allows for this really nice way of collaborating, giving feedback, making refinements. And then because we were able to work on that internally with that collaboration using this AI-enabled tool, we were then able to actually get the customer input a lot earlier. And we got the customer approval to release that product in their environment a lot quicker because we were able to hook up the Figma Make prototype to our APIs, and they were able to see their own data, obviously with all the necessary approvals, in the prototype, and they were able to understand more of the concepts. They were able to see the user experience, right? Sometimes the visual aspects really work, and it was really it was so encouraging to see the design team, my product engineering team working together and collaborating on this AI enablement. And I think it's true whichever role you're in, right? If you're an engineer using GitHub Copilot, which our team do, right. And now most recently, our data scientists and ML engineers started using True Foundry, which I think of as like Figma for data scientists. Like it's exceptional tool. Shout out to that team. And I'm, again, not an investor, but fantastic AI enabled product that helps a different part of this squad be creative and innovative. And as you said, unleashing more of their potential. And with my design team, right, yes, there is an efficiency play, but they've designed a better product now. And I can scale that product a lot more quickly to more customers because of that.
As you're talking about the design team, I'm just thinking, can you imagine, this tool to really make functional areas like finance or HR using this tool to be able to deliver things more efficiently. Uh, Industries like healthcare or higher ed, can you imagine the AI agents truly making an impact in people's life by helping solve problems and becoming a better AI tutor for the kids to learn better and really deep learning, instead of just superficial learning. So I think the potential is so much more. But I'm really excited about our continued conversation about this topic because I think this topic is going to become the topic of 2026. and a lot more companies rolling out agentic AI and see what the power of it is. I'm sure there'll be some successes, some failures. People will have some bumpy roads, but just an interesting journey with from Gen AI to agentic AI, and the journey continues. So thank you so much for being here. Really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm looking forward for our conversation at the summit as well, Ralph. Raf, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And as always, I enjoy these conversations. I hope you all do too. Agentic AI isn't about replacing people; it's about redesigning potential. As in our conversation, we spoke about so many use cases that agentic AI is only here to become our coworker, to help take the mundane stuff, so we can really think about or rethink about how we are showing up at work. It's challenging us to think differently about leadership or collaboration, or really thinking about how truly it means to create value in the digital world. And I think we all have the power. I feel like in small little ways at Wilda, we all get to do a little bit of our part to make sure that we are moving forward in this peer-to-peer community. But also in, I think, in our day-to-day life, as we design our data architectures, or we are in the design team or product team, or um, uh, AI team or BI team, doesn't matter which team you are in. If you're using this technology, it's about having the power to make a difference. We are moving into the next era in organization that thrives. They will thrive if they are using the tool effectively. It's not just about technology, but it's about culture. It's about people, and I think creating environments where humans and AI can learn from one another, co create, and push the boundaries is what is possible. So, to everyone, stay tuned in. We are going to show up again for the LinkedIn Live. And I love having these conversations where we are leading transformation. We're talking about designing new roles and rethinking about how AI landscape is changing. So please jump in, always share if you have any questions or thoughts as we continue our conversation. We will hopefully today's session spark some new ideas for you, made you think differently about the future of work. So please continue sharing your thoughts, comments, and keep the conversation going. I'm Asha Saxena, and I'll see you next time.